Hi everyone, this is Mark and Krystal, and we're recording the Journey Stories podcast, season 2, episode 38 on Mark for Glory Advocacy Media. And today we have two special guests with us who have collaborated at Door Labs to create an inclusive environment online that they're going to tell us more about. Hi, Kunho Yiran.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
We're doing well.
Thank you a lot for inviting us to this wonderful podcast. We're very excited to share what we built so far, and we'll see what we can offer to create, I think, more inclusive space for new Web3 internet.
Awesome. Before we get into that, why don't you tell us what your background is, or basically tell us a bit more about disability and how it impacts your life and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm happy to share it. My name is Kunho Kim. I'm currently a co-founder of Door Labs and also an advisor currently. And I was injured about 12 years ago in a ski accident in Montana. I was doing a flip, ski flips, and I actually have a photo of right before the fall. I think it was looking back, it was a very fun, exciting things that I did with my friends, and I am very blessed in a way that I learned so far a lot about diversity and inclusivity in life. Also, it's not an easy journey, but I have been in a wheelchair since then, and I was frustrated in ways a lot about how I couldn't physically access to certain places and travel around. So in college at Harvard, I wrote a wheelchair accessible tour guidebook where we toured the United States from San Francisco to Boston. We rented a car and did a road trip and went to I think 20 states by car with my friends over I think about 50 days. We written an about 400-page travel guidebook. It was sponsored by Hertz, MGM Grants, and thankfully from Christopher Reeve's Foundation, helping us know more to let other people know how to travel in a wheelchair and how to rent like a accessible rental cars with hand controls, and also booking hotels with accessible rooms with roll-in showers, making those requests when Google Maps wasn't really that popular or working that well. We had a fun joke about how the navigation system was called Never Lost, but we were always lost because Google Maps wasn't really working that well back in 2013. And I think since then, I've been very much interested in advocating for people with different needs because I think technology should be there to help people to access more information. But I felt like there was a lot of lacking places in a way that people cannot access certain information because it's not available online. I created, helped creating one of the first accessible, I think, Google Maps in South Korea for metro stations so that people can use, because for people with disabilities or in strollers or crutches and wheelchairs, have a different, I think, navigation system because you have to use the elevator or lift. And oftentimes these are not, I think, readily available information. So I helped doing that. And I think all along, I think what I did was trying to help myself, try to get the information that I wanted to have. And I saw an interesting place where Web3 is just beginning. And with my experience of making these accessible maps and making these travel information more available online, I figured out it would be much nicer if someone started these accessibility and inclusive projects when the internet was just beginning. So I thought that it'd be very interesting to start inclusivity and I think diversity projects on Web3 when we're just beginning right now. And
there's definitely a lot of red tape and barriers when it comes to these kind of things that you're trying to implement. It's really sad. I mean, you think all these things are in place for us to be included in things, but they're not implemented correctly, or they passive aggressively kind of put it there, but not really. You have to through all the red tape to get to it.
We talking about how you're handling most of the accessibility and inclusion issues at Dora Labs, and maybe you could also tell us a bit about your background and do you have any experience with disability or anything like that?
Right. I was an architect. I studied architecture. I met Kunho about 2 years ago through a friend. And Kunho then showed me his little book, Traveling in the US, and I found it super interesting because then I was still working in architecture firms, and in different projects we did deal with disability facilities design. But I found his journey was so interesting. And then through him, I learned more about Web3. I found, while designing in metaverse was such a huge field I have never touched before, and there's so much more to do there to make people be more aware of this, to reach to a wider audience. And I helped him with some smaller projects with 2D NFTs. And now we are building some 3D models, like physical virtual space, for example, a concert hall. So yeah, we emphasize the disability accessible in this building. Yeah, so that's what we are working right now.
So what is sort of the mission? What are you hoping to accomplish with Dora Labs?
Dual Labs, maybe Kunho can elaborate more in that.
Yeah, I think Dora Labs was created to help use these new technologies that are coming about to benefit, I think, to focus more into diversity and inclusivity in these new technology. Because one thing that I noticed is that a lot of times diversity and inclusivities for new technologies are added on later, kind of like an adage. And I think there are lots of thoughts that were missing when people were designing in the very beginning. Just like a building, when you're building a fresh new, like architecture, it's always important to think about accessibility and diversity in mind with design. But I think a lot of the problems of architecture, like internet architecture right now, is like a website accessibilities or inclusivities of designs are more like an add-ons that it happened later on. And I wanted to not make the same mistakes when Web3 is just coming about. So we wanted to advocate for this kind of needs, and also create these new infrastructures so that people can learn more about it and how to go about it. And I'll be frank, and I think Web3 is a new space, and we ourselves don't really know how to best go about putting inclusivity and diversity. And I think the first projects that we did was to create like the first NFT collectibles for characters with and wheelchairs and disabilities, representing people with different needs. And now we are collaborating with Yiran about making like the first metaverse inclusive concert halls, so that in these halls there are ramps and elevators and also brails and these kind of features that are built in, so that this metaverse concert hall is welcoming people with all different needs. And I think Yiran has like a clips or videos that she can show kind of for people who are watching it from YouTube. She already has all the designs done, so maybe she can walk us through about the concert hall that we are having as a sneak peek for people to know a little more about. I think it's not at the stage where we can have a public launch, but we'd be happy to show it to your podcast listeners online to see how exciting this is. This is one of the first kind of like a
It is extremely exciting. And the
Yeah.
fact that you guys are leading the way and showing example of, how to be inclusive and diverse, it's awesome that you're doing that. And yeah, that's awesome.
And it's also very important to do all this experimentation to let not only yourselves, but let other people know what's possible, right? And that we discussed a bit before about that, and we can get into that after we walk through a bit of what it looks like.
So here is our pre-launch alpha version of Doll Labs concert hall on the platform called On Cyber. First, you click Enter the World. Here we are. With my avatar, we can walk around the space. I'll just show you the overall looking of the building. It's an open-air plaza-style concert center. It consists of 4 uplifted mushroom-shaped plazas. The design gesture, or say the language of the design, the ramp, which acts as the main circulation of the structure. I designed this way to stress the point here. We design with accessibility in mind. In this digital world, all users would feel being represented. The theater setting has 2 big screens showing the concert we will be playing. Here are some placeholders of Joe Hisayashi's concert from YouTube. We will be playing his music performed by Seoul Art Center later. In this platform, we can design the volume and the range of the music. So here I set it that you can hear the music if you are standing within the seating area. Let's climb the ramp. Ideally, we can take either the elevators or the ramp to go to the uplifted structures. You won't fall easily because I built invisible walls along the ramp edges. Now we reach its upper levels. Those screens are placeholders. We can use them as more streaming channels or as exhibition frames for artworks. Thank you for having the tour with us. I wish to see you in our concert hall metaverse very soon.
So I guess we okay. So one of the things we discussed, Krystal and I discussed before, and we touched on with you last time we talked, was we can, like, right now we're in a world where disability, especially like when it comes to the government or employment and stuff like that, it's kind of restricted, right? And we see that there's potential here to give people some level of autonomy and control over their own finances, and not being forced to abide by certain rules in order to get limited income from the government and whatever, and they can sort of be empowered themselves. How do you intend to address that, or is that something that you're looking?
Is that something to think about later? And just the designs that are coming first, or what?
I think the most important thing for us right now is think about how to represent inclusivity and diversity for Web3. And I think these structures will allow people to access, I think, internet much more easily because we'll have infrastructure ready. And I think in the future, because I think the internet and computer allows people to work from home very easily, and especially when we have these metaverse structures where there's a concert hall and whatnot, all you need is a camera and a laptop. And can access it with your internet access, and people can work and whatnot. And I think these will be really helpful for people with disabilities, because what we saw is that during COVID, work from home has been really helpful for people with disabilities at workforce. And now it became norm, and people are having meetings in Zoom. It's more accommodating for people with different needs. And I think these structures will actually help a lot. And we hope to see people with disabilities becoming more independent and also financially free from by being able to have more, I think productive activities online and participating in activities. That's a future grand vision that we have right now. Hopefully that can be achieved soon. But in terms of directly targeting for those, I think we're a little bit too early for those to have any, I think, immediate outcome possible to help people, I think, financially, or have to start a marketplace where people can get jobs in the metaverse. I think that's a little too early. Think of it as like we're just coming into an age of like the internet back in like the late 80s or early 90s. And I think in the future, I think for the metaverse, hopefully, since we created these infrastructures, people with different needs will be able to freely or more easily access this Web3 in the future, so that they can participate in these activities that can free and give a lot of independence and power to people with different needs.
No, I think she's explaining it.
Yeah. So surely something like NFTs would sort of empower people to get away from traditional models of employment and payment, and give more power to people and independence to people with disabilities. Want to explain what NFTs are?
So how I think about NFTs is more like internet paper. Just like we use paper to draw art over there, or we use paper to write, I think, novel, or we use paper to write poem on top of it. But this paper verifies that whatever piece on or whatever I think content that is on top of the paper is unique and one piece. And I think that's similar to NFTs right now. And I think people understand NFTs as more like a collectible piece. And I think that's the first immediate use cases that we can think of. So a lot of NFTs that are coming about are more like a collectible projects. Think of it as like a Pokemon cards or baseball cards. People can put different characters on top of it and can verify whatever copy that you have is a unique one and only is available around the world as the one piece. We will never be able to do that purely online, because we could not verify that there's only one copy. But through blockchain technology, we are now able to verify that there's only one copy. And I think this is a breakthrough in terms of ownership. And also we go back to this financial independence area, where because we can verify there's only one copy and there's a value in this piece of paper now, people can trade it, loan it to people, or make this art and sell it to other people. And I think that's where NFT comes in very interestingly. And for me, I think people with different needs will greatly benefit from, I think, virtual and electronic activities, because they're not confined by, I think, physical locations, where people with different needs have difficult times going from place A or place to B. And also have difficult times than what we have in this world's limitations. And I believe having these virtual, I think, a collectible and a virtual paper will help a lot of people going forward.
You were saying that obviously this is going to be a more accessible means of income or money, but also inclusive, and were you also saying it would be safer?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of income wise, I think going forward for people with different needs, because it's purely virtual, purely online, that you don't get, I think, limited by certain physical world's rules. And if you can do things with just your computer and putting things online, and I think that's a very interesting way of income for people with different needs. In terms of security, I know that there's a different issues about storing your password, whatnot, but I think it's more of a nature of your privacy and private information that you should keep to yourself. But I think there's always a risk of I think security issue when things are done virtually. So just like you have a key for your home, you need to be very careful about not to drop it to someone else or be stolen or copied for your physical locked doors key at home. And I think there are some precautions that people need to take for virtual goods. But I think we're just getting into the new age and people are not familiar with it. So hopefully, as time goes along, people will find the best, I think, practices to have more secure ways.
Right. As with any new technology, that often brings fear, insecurity, especially when it comes to financial, so it's going to take the concept of hearing from youngsters to be able to feel like, okay, we can try this and we're okay with this, because anything new that comes along, it's kind of like you have this apprehension at first, and then everybody's like takes a collective sigh of relief and goes on, and everything's fine. So, this is one of those things where I guess it's the same thing.
Yeah.
The easiest way to do that, I guess, would be for you to just have the audio, your cell phone or whatever near you, and be recording yourself talking as you're talking in person, using your model as a presentation, and just be talking through it, and then send the recording and the video separately.
Okay.
So I guess a question for both of you. Now you had mentioned that you'd started this project with this inclusivity and accessibility in mind at the beginning. Why do you think it's important for you to do that, and for people and for companies in general to think of those things first at the beginning? Why is that important, and what are the benefits for them and the benefits for other people by them doing that?
Yeah, I think the reason why I started it, because it's important to, I think it's a learning lesson for me, because I try to create, and I think accessible information available for the internet right now. But it's been a decade since the internet has just begun. And just like architecture, it's always better to think about accessibility in mind when you're building from the scratch. Instead of making a building, then try to renovate it and try to make features in it, it's always more difficult. So I thought that since Web3 is just beginning, I think just like any kind of infrastructure or building phases, it's always better to start from the beginning. And I think that's why we're very excited to create this now, so that people and I think in the future don't have to renovate the whole thing, try to put like a feature for people with different needs, so that we don't make the same mistake and then try to make a better place. And I think Yiran and I talked about this a lot, because she has an experience in architecture and also renovating a new design with people with different needs. We, I think, resonated a lot about creating these infrastructure when things are starting. It's always easy to put things when you're starting, then try to put everything as an add-on, because when you're starting from beginning, you know which infrastructure is needed, which I think structure you have to go for with that in mind. Otherwise, it's more, from my experience, has been more difficult.
Yeah, and it can always be overwhelming, right? Like if you have a structure or business that's been around for 20 years, they built up so much sort of history there. It's always overwhelming and intimidating to go back and say, I've got to add all this stuff I didn't consider.
That's not always a possibility. I mean, that's not always something they can implement, from years ago. But it certainly would be going forward. It would be a lot more cost effective to be thinking about yourself or your family or your friends or your grandparents or whoever might acquire a disability in the future, in a few years from now or now even.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's very exciting and also important, I think. Yeah.
It's very exciting for people like you guys that are thinking ahead and thinking, okay, let's start to get this started. And even though you might not have, all the stuff there to make it happen, and at least, you have it in your head of what needs to happen, and you're smart enough to realize, okay, let's get this started.
Was there any projects or any, how do people get in touch with you or find out more about your labs?
Or like also not just about who you are and how to get in contact with you, but you may find somebody's watching this that wants to collaborate with you or help you make it happen. That's what this platform is about, is letting people like you guys share what you have going, so that other people that have the same, thing in mind with a disability or not with a disability, but maybe they have the same thing going on, to be able to collaborate.
Yeah, we would would love to collaborate with people who are excited about new technologies and also inclusivity and diversity. We have Twitter account called Door Labs. If anyone, I think, direct messages, would be happy to chat with them and discuss how we can possibly collaborate. And I think just like how Door Labs is collaborating with Yiran to make the accessible, I think, metaverse concert hall, we'd love to collaborate with other folks and experts around the world who are passionate about this new technology and people with different needs.
Well, thanks, Kunho and Yiran, and thanks for taking the time to speak with us
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Have a
Bye.
great day. Thanks for having us. Bye-bye.